People, Deluded, I'm back again. Good morning, and I hope you're all doing well and safe. And matter of fact, welcome back to another edition of the DG podcast, the Deluded podcast, the Really and Truly podcast. Every day I see you lot give it a good name, or a new name, better yet. Whatever it is, I'm just happy you're viewing. You know, whether you're listening on Spotify, whether you're listening on Apple Music. This typically comes out on YouTube a bit later, so some of you might be listening on that. Just make sure you're aware of all the content, and obviously, typically Monday/Tuesday and a Friday we do 2 editions of the DG podcast. Obviously with it there is things to talk about, but as you lot know, the season's a bit of a madness. The postseason's a bit of a madness, so I've had to do this a bit ad hoc. So we're going to primarily focus around the Euros today, Euro 2020, or unofficially Euro 2021. I think it's thrown up some interesting talking points. I would say the first thing for me would actually be the use of what I call anyways throwback strikers. Like, it felt like Turkey tried to use that. What I mean by that is the guy who will work the channels, the guy who will make that run on the last man, that guy who, you know, will win the first ball, knock it down for his players. I think Holland have tried to do that. Turkey have tried to do that. Wales with Moore did that. I think Ukraine also did it. Russia did it, if I haven't said them already. Quite a few people have tried to do the throwback number 9 thing, and that's that. I do think some of the refereeing decisions have been poor. One of the best refereeing performances I saw was in the Denmark versus Finland game, where obviously we saw what happened with Eriksen. Credit to everybody involved for reacting quickly. I think it's a bloody disgrace that you're hearing out UEFA threatened Denmark with potentially forfeiting the tie 3-0. Now, I understand that bad things happen in life and life has to go on and the game had to be prepared, but this is what I'm talking about. There is no duty of care for these players. They treat these footballers like guinea pigs physically. There's a whole lot of games in the fixture calendar. There's a lot of pointless friendlies. They don't really care. And also, they don't care about their mental health. You know, everybody looked visibly disturbed with them Eriksen scenes. You know, obviously, you know, BBC or the broadcasters, whoever has the TV rights, have a duty of care. If I came out there and if I actually said free Palestine, not that I want to use that as an example and trivialize things, but if I said free Palestine or Black Lives Matters or some sort of political statement that people may or may not have agreed with, they would have cut that broadcasting or switched to something ASAP. So when you see someone physically in pain, and it's very disturbing, bearing in mind there's clearly kids, there could be his kids or his family members, what's going on? Credit to Denmark, Kasper Schmeichel, Kajer, the captain, and everybody involved, but they shouldn't have to be human shields to save Eriksen from that. You know, the beautiful thing is you're seeing Eriksen actually today upload on Instagram. I don't want to say he's good, because I don't know if he's going to keep playing if he's going to start playing football, but he's got his health, he's alive. You know, technically we lost him, he had a cardiac arrest, and credit to everybody for moving quickly involved, from the medical staff to the ref to the fellow players. But as I said, hopefully, it ain't. Now everybody's going to see what I've been saying this for ages, and people said I'm a moaner. I said there's no duty of care physically or mentally for these footballers. Sure, when incidences like this happen, we're going to say stuff, but it's going to go back to zero. It's going to go back to nonsense, and sad to say, but there's going to be, you know, if it's not this, someone's going to faint on the pitch and things like that. You know, and it's sad that this is probably the main talking point in the Euros, and it was visibly disturbing because I was watching the game to see him collapse. Nobody really knew what was going on. You would imagine broadcasters would have things in place for this, because again, I'm not someone who believes in hiding things from people. It's not that I didn't mind looking at it, because obviously no one wants to see that, but I just think in life you can't hide things. But at the same time, there's young children watching things. These things stay with people for life, like the players. And I think shout out to both sets of players for continuing, but you know, mentally, them things there, that's not going to leave them. That's going to stay with every one of those players and everybody involved for life. And it's upsetting that more could have been done. And you just listen to Kasper Schmeichel speak. He said, we were put in a position which I personally don't think we should have been put in. It probably required that someone above us had said that it was not the time to make a decision and maybe should wait for the next day. So again, maybe he's placing at the feet of the Denmark FA or the chairman or someone. It isn't fair on these players. You know, they're athletes in that, but they're performers. How can they perform? How can both sets of teams perform better where football is secondary with what's happened, people? The game went on for what it's worth, but it's secondary. There needs to be a duty of care physically and mentally for these players, and it's appalling. Casper went on to say, we had two options. None of the options were good. We took the least bad one, added Braithwaite apologies. There were a lot of players that weren't able to play the match. They were elsewhere mentally. You could have wished for a third option in this situation. Exactly that. And it's upsetting, man. It's very upsetting. But, crucially, Eriksen is on the mend. That is all that matters, people. But yeah, in terms of the Euros from a footballing point of view, let's be honest, we're probably lacking in terms of quality. There's been a lot of games played. There's obviously been a lot of people are coming into this with knocks. Obviously, the knock-on effects directly and indirectly over COVID may have played a part as to why we're potentially here. And, players are not in their, we're not really seeing players in their best performances. I wouldn't say I've been impressed by anyone in these Euros so far. Like I said, I'm seeing a lot of throwback number 9s. If anyone's impressed me, it's a team that's actually lost. They lost 3-2 to Holland, Netherlands, better yet Ukraine. I was very impressed with Chenko's side. Everyone wanted the ball. They played good football. Obviously, at this level, you can't make mistakes to the capabilities they did. And like Russia, they need to improve in that regard. But I think Shevchenko's men have shown me anything close to a DNA and a blueprint. Everybody else just doesn't look... It's not that people are playing bad. It just there needs to be a bit better. And a lot of the games have been boring. A lot of the games have been sluggish. We ain't seen too many first half goals and whatnot, people. Turkey versus Italy. I think not that the scoreline flatters Italy. The scoreline flatters the game because every goal came in the second half. And, Turkey handing goals. Obviously, Insigne and Immobile capitalised on a Demiral own goal, and they were able to claim a 3-0 victory. Now, that's good for Italy, because Italy go and play Switzerland. Switzerland might be out of this competition, in my opinion, come then, because they drew 1-1 with Switzerland. They drew 1-1 with Wales. Obviously, Embolo, who had a very decent game, gave them the lead. Wales kept pressing, and more scored. Daniel James, I felt, had a better game than Gareth Bale and Aaron Ramsey, to be fair with you. I did think Wales were hanging on in the first half, and then they somewhat adjusted. Embolo makes me think there's a player in there. I did like Freuler, number 8 of Switzerland, 29-year-old, plays for Atalanta, been around the block. Done well. Apparently, he said Xhaka asked him about... Xhaka, I couldn't believe the forward passes I was seeing. Apparently, Xhaka's asked him about the roads in Italy. Make of that what you will, people. Finland won 1-0 against Denmark in the restart. Again, football is secondary. Belgium had a decent game against Russia. They weren't really pressed. 2 of those goals, the first 2 goals, in my opinion, for substitute Meunier, and before that, Lukaku, were handed to them. Defending was poor. A lot of people say Lukaku's offside. He is, but the rules have changed. The centre-half has touched the ball, so Lukaku's in. Lukaku's off with, Lukaku and Schlick are the ones laughing right now because they're competing for the golden boot. Lukaku, brace for Lukaku. Substitute Thomas Meunier had a very good game for me. But apart from that, Russia, they just kept trying to hit their striker and it just wasn't working. De Bouzou, he's 32. He worked hard. He's coming off the back of a big season, but you could see he's got tired. Zirkov as well. It felt like they didn't have the legs. I do think Boyata, when the time gets more tougher, he made a couple of good blocks, but I think he might potentially be a weak link for Belgium. I don't think Belgium did enough on the right-hand side before Meunier came on, really. I wasn't impressed with Mertens. I think Carrasco huffed and puffed. I think Thorgan Hazard was decent. I actually think Telemans played quite poor. He losing the ball unnecessarily and a lot of that. I can't lie, Belgium looked a bit lax because they knew they didn't have to do much. But they're definitely one of the better performers. Golovin had a couple of occasions, but he hardly took this game to Belgium and seized the moment. Shocker, obviously, England won 1-0 against Croatia. Raheem Sterling, who many people questioned why is he starting, scored in the 57th minute. It was a good performance from everyone. I still have question marks about Southgate. I still don't think he's quite the manager. I still have questions about him tactically. But you have to give credit where due. All of these questions, at least where Croatia's concerned, he answered them. We all said, why isn't Shaw or Chilwell playing left back? I still agree that a left back should be playing at left back. But Trippier had a decent performance. Tyrell Mings, think he's going to get found out at this level. There was a couple of shaky moments that we got away with in this game, but Tyrell Mings stood up to be counted. John Stones stood up to be counted. Pickford's distribution might cost us, but he stood up to be counted. Calvin Phillips, very good game in the middle of the park for England. Declan Rice the same. Mason Mount buzzing like a bumblebee from start to finish. Foden hit the post, and I think Foden's performance before he got subbed kind of flattened out, but he did all right. Raheem Sterling and Mason Mount down that left-hand side connected very well. Sterling had a good game, you know. Obviously, Kane, I don't know if Kane mentally, you know, obviously he's heard the stuff with Eriksen. I don't want to speculate. I don't know if Kane was all the way there, but I think Kane was below par. I don't think we was getting people around him, and he didn't have much service, but I just don't think he was doing good enough with what he had. You know, it's clearly not the Croatia. You know, it's not fair to England because people were saying Croatia, you know, footballing pedigree, blah, blah, blah. Suddenly they've lost, sorry, and it's like, oh, it's not the team from 3 years ago, which is true. But that's not England's fault, innit? And they still had Luka Modric, they still had Brozovic, they still had Kovacic, they still had Rebic, they still had Perisic, you know. They huffed and puffed early on, but we showed them what we're on, and we've given ourselves a good platform. It would be England to drop points against Scotland, and Scotland obviously lost their game, you know, against Czech Republic, so they're going to want to say something. But we've put ourselves in a good place, people. Ironically, finishing second place in this group might be the best thing, but I don't want to. I didn't watch Austria versus Macedonia apart from the highlights, and obviously, shout out to Pandev, Olden but Golden scored for Macedonia, Arnautovic and Goretzka, I can't say his name, but he used to play for Hoffenheim on loan with Reiss Nelson. Here, you know, Austria were never in doubt, you know. Macedonia briefly equalised before two late goals obviously confirmed it for Austria against Macedonia. Obviously, the game was marred by political sort of stuff from Arnautovic. Obviously, his celebration has drawn a lot of problems, and apparently he got into a lot of problems with Alioski. You could all see the scenes of Alaba putting his hand over his mouth and telling him to shut up. So again, I'm really ignorant on that aspect, but again, you can see why there's no place for such. But yeah, Austria won 3-1. Holland won 3-2. In terms of entertainment, Ukraine versus Holland, probably the best game. You know, I did think Holland were presented two of them goals. You know, they were handed on a plate by Ukraine to them. Yarmolenko, goal of the tournament contender, until we obviously saw Scotland versus Czech Republic. Dumfries, very good. Dumfries, very good in the first half in particular for Holland, and one of the better performers. Ultimately scored the winner, but for a fullback, he scored 5 minutes from time. He actually could have had a lot more, in my opinion. It was a good game, you know, for Ukraine. They fought back. At one point, they were 2-0 down. Expertly got themselves back in the game with a terrific effort from Yarmolenko. And Yarmolenko, you know, that was a terrific set piece that he was able to convert home. You know, you look at it, Ukraine had 7 shots, 5 on target, you know. Holland had 15 shots, 7 on target. And I think, you know, Depay played well. You know, De Jong played well. Wijnaldum played well. You know, they did play well, but on another day, you know, you don't get out. Your blushes aren't spared, courtesy of Ake and Dumfries 5 minutes before time, and you win the game. You know, you have to be better. When I look at Holland, when I look at Belgium, when I look at Spain, even though they drew, when I look at Italy, it's not that they were bad, but again, you're sitting here, and I've been doing the watch-alongs, and I hope you're all looking at the watch-alongs. Make sure you're there for Hungary versus Portugal and France versus Germany today. You're just watching these games, and you're just thinking, if you lot played each other, like if the top European teams at some point, which will happen, all played each other so far, I think you lot might be a couple goals down or might struggle against each other. So yeah, that's probably 3. Holland 3, Netherlands better yet 3, Ukraine 2. That's probably the game of the tournament so far. Slovakia won 2-1 against Poland. You know, Szczesny unlucky on goal. Good strike from Skriniar, to be fair with you. Litny of Poland, decent one as well. Yeah, man, I don't understand how that was a red card, but boy, and to be fair, Slovakia did it with 11 shots, 2 on target. Poland had 17 and 3 shots on target. So it's a game where both teams really lacking in that final third quality, but Poland now need to win their next game or they're out. Slovakia have given themselves a great platform. Now, we know what we're getting with Spain. They're going to pass you to death. Now, it's not quite the Spanish side of prime tiki-taka. You can see that with the level of player. Like, they've still got quality players, but, you know, none quite strike fear into you, like how seeing Xavi, Iniesta, Xabi Alonso, Sergio Ramos in his prime, PK in his prime. You know, you get it, people. Several targets. You know, they did play. There were some players that played well. The young Pedri, I think he announced himself on the international stage once again very well. I think Dani Almo did well. I think Paul Torres and Laporte, the two lefts, you know, they started with 2 left-footed centre-backs. Arteta, there's no issue with it. Alba was probably, like Robertson for Scotland, Alba was their captain and went forward the most for them. And I think Alba could have probably scored himself. Colke did well. I think Rodri was kind of under par for me. I think Ferran Torres was anonymous. I think Morata should have scored a brace, but again, he couldn't hit a barn door. He's about as useful as a chocolate teacup based on that game. Marcos Llorente playing as an inverted right back did well. You know, Unai Simon wasn't put under pressure, but the two incidents he did, you saw he's shaky and he might cost Spain later on. You know, they're under no pressure tipping it over his bar and things. You know, Isaac, I think a lot of people are overhyping the performance, but he did all right in patches. And as an Arsenal fan, you want him. You know, his shot that actually hit Marcus Llorente, it's going off target. He's hit Marcus Llorente, he's clipped his left peg and hit the post. You know, at the end of the day, it's a better point for Sweden than it is for Spain. Don't get it twisted. I think initially Sweden looked very nervous. You know, there was a couple of incidences where Morata should have scored, but eventually they grew into the game. They started to get out for large periods of the game. Obviously, they were in their own half, like you would expect, but they rid their lot. They did well. They had chances of their own, and it's a better point for them. And for Spain, all you can say is wasteful. They barely create clear-cut chances, and when they did, very wasteful. Very, you know, we all know with Spain, they're never going to have a plan B. And for me, what I'm seeing, maybe there was an air of comfortability, but what they do isn't bad. It's the pace they do it with. And like I said, not being able to switch it up is one thing. But can they up the intensity? You know, do things in less touches. You know, play a bit faster. I don't know. Moreno off the bench for me did more than Morata. Morata and Ferran Torres probably the most under par players from a Spanish point of view. But, you know, clean sheet against the Spaniards, not bad for the Swedish. So, yeah, man, I don't think we've seen too many amazing games. Obviously, the Czech Republic defeated Scotland 2-0. Many of my Scottish supporters and viewers are very pessimistic if Scotland will actually bag. Scotland were poor, obviously missing Tierney. David Marshall saved Scotland 9 times out of 10 in that game. And, you know, big up the Swedish keeper as well, Olsen, because he's a big part as to why Sweden got something out of the game as well. I don't know how Lindelof got the official man of the match over him, but fair play. Back to Scotland versus Czech Republic, though, people. And as I said, David Marshall helped them a bit, but, you know, Scotland, I don't know whether it's nerves, I don't know whether it's complacency, because I don't know if it's ability, you know, because it's the first competition in 20 odd years Scotland have participated in, and first time in many people's lifetime. While David Marshall saved them, I don't know why. Why is he out of his area? It's a fantastic 50-yard strike from Schlick, and I think that's his first go outside the area in a couple of years. But why is he there? Now, you know, obviously Hendry's tried to shoot his cannon and there's been a counter-attack, but he shouldn't be off his line anyways. There's really no need, you know. 9 times out of 10, many footballers won't attempt what happened. Many footballers, and the couple that would, it wouldn't work. But that one time he got buried in it, and that's going to stay there for life. It's a fantastic strike. And like I said, Slick, he bagged 2 goals. He's one of those players where I just feel where the domestic game is concerned, he struggled. I haven't really seen a lot of the hype, but this is a competition to re-announce yourself potentially on the world stage. As I said, I just think the Scottish players bottled it, man. Hanley tried, but he was lacking in ability. Cooper overplaying. You know, it did look like when that stunner was scored, heads dropped in Scotland. I think Armstrong would have liked to have done a lot better. You know, Andy Robertson had a chance he probably should have scored, but anytime your left back's the most creative in the team, there's an issue. O'Donnell isn't suited to a wing back role, and the 32-year-old is kind of past it. John McGinn woke up in the second half, but he was actually poor. You know, McTominay was missing. You know, Armstrong was missing. Christie was about in little flutters, but couldn't have any complaints about being subbed. Dykes, who, again, like I'm saying, with the throwback striker thing, they're trying to make him win the first and seconds and first ball, and nobody's trying to win the seconds. Is it any coincidence you injected Trey Adams and there was a bit of a difference? I just think they were poor, man. Mentally, I don't think the Scottish side got themselves prepared for it, man. And their loss is obviously Czech Republic's gain, man. I do think one thing you can admire about the Czech Republic is every player fancies themselves in the air. They were dominating, clearing aerial defensive headers and that. There was incidents that Scotland should have exploited. You know, Dykes has to bag. He should have bagged. They should have at least scored. But so far, like I said, man, if I had to say really impressive games I somewhat enjoyed. I thought Holland versus Ukraine will be a classic. Is anything close to a game we'll talk about 10 years from now. So I think the Holland game is one I think was decent. I didn't mind the Spain one. It was flat in short, but it wasn't boring to me. But I won't quite say them. I'd say, do you know what? I'd say Netherlands, Ukraine, England, Croatia. the second half of Turkey-Italy, to be fair, I didn't mind Wales versus Switzerland. It weren't the most boring. Belgium played decent football as one-sided as it was, but I'd probably say Belgium, Russia at a push. England, Croatia at a push. Sweden, Spain at a push. Undoubtedly Holland versus Ukraine. So yeah, man, hopefully we've got Hungary versus Portugal from 5 p.m. UK time, and from 8 p.m. UK time France, Germany, where obviously group of death settings, Portugal, France, Germany is peak. Let's see what happens in that regards, people. Obviously, I wonder what's going on in the French camp. You've seen Mbappe and Giroud kind of go at it and things and say you shouldn't criticize players in the public and whatnot after Giroud's comments about not being passed to. We'll have to see, man, because everyone needs to sing from the same hymn sheet to have half a chance, really, really and truly. So we're gonna have to see. We're gonna have to see what gets thrown up in that regards, man. But in terms of England, expecting a lot more, want to see a lot more from England and in the Euros in general, man. Hardly seen anything. Obviously, shout out to Yarmolenko because, again, I've focused on Slick's banger from 50 yards. Yarmolenko, probably second best goal of the tournament. Fantastic strike against Holland. And he's unfortunate that literally his goal looks average compared to scoring from 50 yards. But, you know, it might be the year of the left footers, people, because they've done it. And I think them sort of regions, Czech Republic, Ukraine, Slovakia in their own way, you know, these sort of regions, I think they've played the best, to be fair with you, in the Euros so far. So it is what it is in that regards, people. Obviously, to go back over Arnautovic's thing, apparently Marko Arnautovic has insisted he is not a racist and apologised to the North Macedonia side after a heated clash on Sunday night's game. As you lot know, he obviously scored and there's been suggestions racist language was used during an exchange late in the game. He took to Instagram and said there were some heated words yesterday in the emotions of the game, for which I'd like to apologise, especially to my friends from North Macedonia and Albania. I would like to say one thing very clearly. I am not a racist. I have friends in almost every country and I stand for diversity. Everyone who knows me is aware of that. And I mean, I didn't watch the game apart from the highlights, so I can't really comment. But I mean, people tend to, it's like me saying I'm not a murderer after I've killed someone, you know. Again, you have to control your emotions, and most importantly, anger and all these things. It brings out real people's real opinions. Why do you think people say watch your tongue? But anyways, people, Arnautovic scored Austria's third goal on Sunday's game and celebrated. There have been claims on social media he used an anti-Albanian slur towards a player who has Albanian background playing for North Macedonia. Apparently, he was then pictured in having a heated exchange with Leeds player Alioski. Alioski is also of Albanian heritage, and obviously Arnautovic is of Serbian. As you lot know, there is a historic tension between Serbia and Albania, while the same could potentially be said, or allegedly be said, for Serbia and North Macedonia. So you know why there's issues in that regards. In other news, people, obviously you all saw in the Belgium game, Timothy Cassans had to be subbed. Apparently he should be fit for the new season. However, he will be missing what is left of Belgium's Euro 2020. Obviously, he suffered a fractured eye socket after a clash of heads with a Russian player, and he's been, you know, it's unfortunate that the 25-year-old is now ruled out. It's a shame. Apparently, Liverpool goalkeeper Adrian has signed a new contract with Liverpool to extend his stay at Anfield, people. As you lot know, he is back up, and the man himself has said, I am delighted, I'm very happy to stay at the club. Firstly, because it's a reward from the club for the fine work that I've been doing since I signed 2 years ago. Wow. And I really appreciate the confidence from the club, from the manager, and from everyone involved in that situation. And secondly, and above all, it is a privilege to stay in Liverpool. It's such a big club, but being as well a family club is very special for any player to stay here. I am privileged. You know, day in the life of a third choice keeper, it must be amazing, really and truly, people. So that's that in relation to Euro. Anything I've got to say in relation to the Euros. I did have a couple of other things I wanted to speak about, people. Let me try and find them. Obviously, Tottenham Hotspur have confirmed the appointment of Fabio Pramricini as the club's managing director of football. He's left a similar position from Juventus after 11 years there. He'll actually start his role on July the 1st, so a couple of weeks, but apparently he is helping with finding Spurs' new gaffer, and obviously you hear that they're linked with Paulo Fonseca, and he's been involved in that, and it wouldn't surprise me. You know, you've been working in Italy, there's a manager who's been doing recent good work at Shakhtar and Roma and he's left his job for whatever reason, you can imagine why, and you can imagine why his opinion might be sought. So I think I don't want to say it's too late to affect the transfer plans of what Spurs want to do, but it might be, because you'd imagine the bulk of the summer deals that Spurs are going to do, incomings and outgoings, have been in the works for months. But you never know, with the Euros and not too many players involved want to sort out their futures, maybe he sets in at the right time. I don't know, people, but nonetheless, if you're a Spurs fan, you've got a new managing director, people. On Paulo Fonseca, apparently he's expected to sign a 3-year deal, but nothing's been agreed yet between the two parties. Apparently Nuno Espirito Santo is moving closer and closer and closer to completing a move to Everton and becoming their gaffer. Now, we've heard he's been linked with Spurs. He's been getting the Spurs role. Nuno's been linked with a couple of Spurs, Palace. The Palace links were a bit bewildering if he was actually going to do that. Everton, I can understand it. To be fair, if Everton can get into bed with the agents that have been working at Wolves, they could get some decent players, and it could be something that benefits them greatly, really and truly. So we'll have to see what happens in that regards, man. Really will. Should we look at some transfer news, folks? If there is any transfer news, very quickly. There's nothing else to do. We might as well end it with that, really. Let's see what's going on. I mean, I know Arsenal have had a bid allegedly rejected for the young Belgium lad, but apart from that, who knows, man? But let's look, man. Apparently, Ronaldo, as Cristiano that is, has once again refused to rule out a move away from Juventus before his contract ends next year. He's been linked with Manchester United. Apparently, Raheem Sterling will hold talks with Manchester City after Euro 20 to discuss his future. He has no interest in being used in any move for Harry Kane. That also follows alleged links that Cancelo and Bernardo Silva are interested in Barcelona, and they want Barcelona moves. If Barcelona was to get Cancelo, that's a decent right back for them. Bernardo Silva is a Barcelona type player. No smoke without fire. I wonder why so many players, despite winning the league and being in the Champions League final, want to keep it moving from City. Do they think they're at the end of their cycle? A lot of those players are in their mid-20s to, a couple are getting on a bit. Do they think there's other things they could be exploring in the game? Obviously a squad like City with all their players, it's an impossible task for Pep Guardiola to keep everybody happy. So do some people want to keep it moving? Apparently, Jadon Sancho expects to become a Manchester United player despite Borussia Dortmund rejecting a 67 bid for the 21-year-old. They're holding out for 77 million with add-ons. Apparently, Chelsea are now the favourites to sign England and Aston Villa's Jack Grealish this summer as they look to beat both Manchester clubs to the 25-year-old signature. Manchester United are apparently among several clubs watching the Costa Rica and PSG goalkeeper Keylor Navas. Man United, you got to sort out what you're doing with Dean Henderson and De Gea long term, surely, no? Xhaka to Roma is still persisting. Apparently Arsenal, West Ham, Crystal Palace and Everton are all interested in taking 30-year-old Welsh midfielder and current Juventus midfielder Aaron Ramsey. I think Arsenal should leave that. Liverpool are interested in Brighton's German midfielder Pascal Gross. Not sure of that. Neil Lennon's tipped Kieran Tierney to become a potential Manchester City player. To be fair, they need a fullback. Why not? Newcastle have added Joe Willock. Well, they've on top of Joe Willock, better yet, they've added Liverpool defender Nat Phillips to their list, and Burnley will compete. And to be fair, out of nowhere, if Liverpool could suddenly get 10 million or so for him, it'd be decent. Leicester are expected to officially announce the signing of Samore. Rafael Varane looks set to leave Real Madrid with both PSG and Manchester United interested. James Tarkowski is hoping to secure a summer move to West Ham. And apparently Everton are interested in Sporting Lisbon's Matheus Nunes. He's quite a player. They should be interested in him, people. So that's that in relation to transfer news. So yeah, we've touched on, sadly the Eriksen thing and sadly Arnautovic. We've focused primarily on the Euros and we've ended with some transfer business. Premier League clubs have apparently for the first time since 2019-20 people announced a loss in revenue. Obviously that's probably with the COVID effect. So it is what it is in that regards. There's actually not that much to talk about. Like I said, if you love this sort of content, make sure you're following me on YouTube for the rest of my content. By the time you're probably finishing listening to this or listening to it after, I probably would have gone live and streamed about Arsenal, about any footballing topics. And like I said, from 5 p.m. UK time, Hungary versus Portugal. After that, France versus Germany. So watch alongs galore. Make sure you're there, people. Make sure you're supporting the content. Check out the DG merchandise as well. Links are in the description and all those sort of things. More importantly than that, please stay safe. It's Tuesday, so I hope you're all moving closer towards any goals, dreams, hopes and aspirations you have, regardless of who you are, wherever you are, whatever life is throwing at you in terms of your circumstances and however old you are at, because you know you're never too young to make a change, you're never too old to change. You know, it's all about growth mindset and it's about wanting to change, and all my viewers seem to be of that sort of nature, and that's one thing I love about my supporters, because you lot motivate me to never get complacent and keep moving. But yeah, man, in relation to this episode of the DG podcast, I can't lie, there isn't anything else to really speak about. So let me know your opinions of the Euros. Let me know some opinions on videos you want, opinions you want, all of those sort of things, people. You know, it's the end, it's the off season, it's pre-season. You lot are helping me as much as that. So yeah, man, check the content. Make sure you're following on all of the socials, especially Twitch, Deluded Gooner 187. More importantly than that, stay safe, stay blessed, and you know, I'm pretty sure we'll meet again not before too long. People, DG, I'm out. God bless.